Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
New at 10 tonight, right now, there are nearly 200 different documented gangs in the city of Memphis, and that number's been soaring in recent years.
And they're spreading everywhere across the county, not just in the inner city.
They're everywhere. Gang members are not just in South Memphis or Whitehaven or Hickory Hill. They're in Cordova, they're everywhere.
There are currently 12,850 documented gang members in the city of Memphis, and 2,750 of those members joined in the past 3 years, which averages to more than 2 new people a day. They're spread out among nearly 200 different gangs.
Besides Los Angeles and Chicago, few cities are as deeply entrenched in gang culture as the city of Memphis, where the sheer density of the criminal groups has become a defining element of its violent crime problem. Just like the blues and barbecue, Memphis has now gained a reputation for gang culture, becoming yet another identity marker for the city. With an estimated 144 gangs documented by law enforcement, Memphis's landscape is marked by an intricate web of criminal organizations that permeate its neighborhoods. When you break down these numbers against the 317 square miles of Memphis, estimates suggest that you can encounter a different gang for every 2 miles that you walk through the city. And one of the oldest and most lucrative criminal groups to ever operate in the Bluff City is the Memphis MOBB.
Alleged leaders of the outfit known as the Memphis MOBB.
They say this case involves cocaine, pills, and marijuana, and sources also say these people are tied to the Memphis MOBB, one of the oldest gangs in the Bluff City. Albuquerque police estimate they've arrested between 31 and 45 members of the Memphis MOBB.
Although named the Memphis MOBB, the first documented presence by this group by law enforcement officials didn't occur in Memphis, but rather in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a city located approximately about 1,050 miles away from its namesake. The association was established in 2009 during an investigation by the Albuquerque Police Department, which had noted a Memphis connection among suspects trafficking cocaine between the two cities. Despite its Memphis origins, the gang's activity initially came to light in Albuquerque, where it would gain notoriety and lead to a controversial federal operation targeting their presence in the city.
16 years behind bars. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Powers. Terry Johnson, a reputed member of the Memphis MOBB, was sentenced in district court today for the murder of Lamaris Washington. News 13's David Romero is live in the Newsplex with more on this. David?
Well, Mike Johnson was found guilty of second-degree murder in his trial in July, though in court today he still claims he didn't do it. District Judge Neil Condolati handed down the maximum sentence allowed, which is 15 years plus 1 year for a firearm enhancement. Johnson was arrested in November 2008 after a 3-hour standoff with cops. He had been on the run since he was named as the prime suspect in the murder of 30-year-old Lamaris Washington earlier that month. Prosecutors said it was a case of wrong place, wrong time for Washington when Johnson shot him in the face. Washington was also unarmed at the time. His mother made her pleas to the judge for the maximum sentence this morning.
I cannot speak to my son, I cannot see my son, and if the defendant has family, they can still see him.
Now, Johnson is the second member of the Memphis MOBB to face murder charges in court this year. In July, Frederick Williams pled guilty to the 2007 murder of his friend Maurice Johnson outside an Albuquerque church. Now, when Williams is sentenced, he could face up to 18 years in prison. In a separate shooting in 2006, Williams fatally shot Lorenzo Montoya, which was later ruled as justifiable. Montoya is suspected by APD to be behind the murder of over a dozen prostitutes buried on Albuquerque's West Mesa. Mike, back to you.
Albuquerque police are investigating a big tip tonight tonight as they continue to search for the West Mesa killer.
That's never been solved.
Developing news on the West Mesa investigation. We could know soon who the final 3 unidentified victims are.
15 years later, it's now a motion picture, and it says it was inspired by true crime stories.
Approximately 6 weeks ago, one of our concerned citizens came across human remains while walking our dog. We discovered the remains of 11 women and 1 unborn child.
The movie Boneyard hit select theaters and streaming services during the holiday. It stars Mel Gibson and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
Chief Carter, I presume. Hope you had a good flight.
The movie is based on what has been called in real life the West Mesa murders.
The Memphis mob didn't just come to Albuquerque for the drug market. Whispers began to reach local law enforcement, hinting that the gang's reach extended beyond narcotics, creeping into the city's underground sex trade. And in 2007, those whispers gained partial confirmation with the murder of Lorenzo Montoya. But Montoya wasn't just another victim. He had brutally murdered Sharika Hill, a local woman connected to prostitution. And as he attempted to load her lifeless body into his truck, he was confronted and killed by Frederick Williams, a known Memphis mob member. The killing was a response, a form of violent retribution for Hill's murder, and it would mark the Memphis mob's first act of deadly force in Albuquerque. But the link between Montoya's death and the Memphis mob would hint at a more sinister side of their operation, one that involved not only controlling drug routes, but using violence to protect their interests on the Albuquerque streets. With the brutal killing of Sharika Hill and the subsequent murder of Lorenzo Montoya, Albuquerque law enforcement began piecing together Memphis mob involvement in not only drugs, but other endeavors. Then, 9 months into the new year, in September of 2008, the violence continued to escalate. Another Memphis mob member, Jarrell Carter, was involved in a murder near San Mateo and Mountain. The incident confirmed that Albuquerque was no longer just a transit city for drugs. It had become a battleground. The escalating bloodshed pushed authorities into action, and by late 2008, the violence had become way too much for law enforcement to handle. This would lead to the launch of Operation Fallen Star, a multi-agency effort to dismantle the mob's growing influence in Albuquerque. And in late 2008, Operation Fallen Star was launched, and over that next year, police and federal agents systematically would target key members of the organization, culminating in dozens of arrests by the end of 2009. The operation was deemed a success. 31 gang members and 12 associates would be arrested, and $18 million in assets would be seized.
Good evening. The crackdown continues on the mobsters who moved to Albuquerque because they thought it was a good town for bad guys.
4 alleged leaders of the outfit known as the Memphis Mob found themselves facing a judge today on charges that could put them away for a long time. News 13's Kim Bias is live in the Newsplex.
Albuquerque police estimate they've arrested between 31 and 45 members of the Memphis Mob for a long list of crimes. Now prosecutors are going after the organizers of the gang for racketeering. Today, 4 more were arraigned and arrested. William Macklin, Tacario Richardson, Monta Claiborne, and Russell Franklin, who appeared earlier in the day. A 5th suspect, Mark Bradford, failed to appear, and as a result, a warrant was issued for his arrest. Police say this group as a whole has created an extensive criminal enterprise on the streets of Albuquerque, which includes robbery, burglary, drug trafficking, and murder. Police have said that the gang moved here some 3 years ago after some members were relocated because of Hurricane Katrina. They decided the laws here were lax and they liked them. Well, these 10 are the only members charged with racketeering. Prosecutors say more charges and arrests could follow.
APD's identified at least 31 members that have self-identified as the Memphis Mob. These are the 10 we sought because they seem to be the founding and the most hardcore original members of this group. But we're certainly not precluding the fact that other people can become involved at any time.
Now, one of the men arrested today is being held on a $500,000 cash-only bond. The other 3 are being held on $500,000 cash or surety bonds, which mean they have to post 10% of that amount to bail out. back to you.
All right, Kim, the 5 other members charged with racketeering are already in custody, some in Albuquerque, others out of state.
Even with the gang's network in Albuquerque dismantled, the true power of the Memphis mob extended far beyond the city's borders. The violence and chaos they unleashed in Albuquerque were just a small part of a much larger operation. Back in Memphis, the real hierarchy remained intact, quietly pulling strings from behind the scenes, while Albuquerque would struggle to recover from the bloodshed and the rumors of unsolved murders. The real architects of the mob's power would be Ronnie Woods and his brothers.
Let me take a second, walk around that wood hall. Yeah, this one from Memphis talking Ronnie Woods hall.
Well, Steph, Greg, we uncovered this large stack of indictments naming 35 people in all. Now, these are some of the men and women charged in this massive investigation led by Memphis Police Multi-Agency Gang Unit. Sources tell us since 2018, they've been building this case and used wiretapping. They say this case involves cocaine, pills, and marijuana. And sources also say these people are tied to the Memphis mob, one of the oldest gangs in the Bluff City. Now, 3 of the people indicted are brothers. You can see them there, Bernard, Steve, and Ronnie Woods. We're told they're high up in this gang, and Ronnie and Bernard are also accused of money laundering. Ronnie was arrested in DeSoto County and brought to Memphis today. Now, all 3 are being held on a $2 million bond. Now, also in the indictments is Michael McKinney. He's facing several drug charges and money laundering. He was just arrested after police say he killed his wife in front of his 2 children in late April at Crescent Bluff Apartments downtown. His bond is now $1 million. Now, we're continuing to dig into this case, and we're trying to find out more information about the investigation. As soon as we find anything out, we're going to let you know. Live in the studio, Jessica Gertler, WREG News Channel 3.
We'll be anxious.
According to federal authorities, Ronnie Woods, along with his brothers Bernard and Steve Woods, are key figures in a criminal organization known as the Memphis Mob. Over several decades, they would establish a significant presence in Memphis's drug trade, particularly in the trafficking of cocaine and marijuana. Their criminal enterprise, which extended beyond Memphis, frequently drew the attention of federal authorities due to their involvement in large-scale drug distribution operations. Known for their organizational structure, the Woods brothers will find themselves as the center of multiple investigations. In addition to major cases in 2004 and 2019, the brothers were also allegedly indicted back in the mid-1990s. In 2004, a person authorities looked at as the leader, Ronnie Woods, along with his brothers Bernard and Steve, as well as a person named as an associate by the name of Rodney McChristian, were indicted in a 9-count federal case for their involvement in a large-scale drug trafficking operation. The indictment revealed that the group conspired to distribute 5 kilograms of cocaine and over 100 kilograms of marijuana from Houston to Memphis between early 2000 and the fall of 2003. The case would also include another brother by the name of Darnell Woods, who once dated Marjorie Harvey and is also rumored to be the father of internet sensation Lori Harvey. As part of that investigation, authorities would search Ronnie Woods' popular nightclub, the Martini Room, located in the Hickory Hill section of Memphis. The popular venue was suspected of being a front for laundering money generated from the drug operation. The club was said to be emblematic of Ronnie's flashy lifestyle, which included allegedly being one of the first individuals in the entire South Memphis to own a Lamborghini. The club that would become a hub for celebrities was said to also play a role in his criminal enterprise. And most recently, in 2019, Ronnie Woods, along with his familiar band of brothers, Bernard and Steve, were again at the center of a major indictment. This time, following a 7-month investigation by a multi-agency gang unit. They would be part of a 38-person indictment that would include charges related to drug trafficking, possession of firearms, as well as money laundering. The investigation would uncover that the Woods brothers were conducting drug transactions near schools in Memphis, specifically Haven View Middle School and Alton Elementary School, which would result in enhanced penalties under the drug-free zone laws. The indictment would include familiar charges of distribution of cocaine, marijuana, but this time they would also add on ecstasy. Authorities would allege that despite being in their 50s at the time, Ronnie, Bernard, and Steve would continue to operate within the Memphis mob, with the indictment causing each brother to be held on a $2 million bail. And the Woods brothers are not the only street legends in Memphis to be tied to the Memphis mob. We previously covered John Kingfish Jones, who was also said to be a high-ranking member inside of the Memphis mob. And if authorities thought the arrest of the Woods brothers or even the death of John Kingfish Jones would bring an end to the Memphis mob, they couldn't have been more wrong, as the gang would pop up in the news just as recently as December of last year, when a member by the name of Jaquez Mob Kilo Reverend would be sentenced to over 18 years in federal prison. And for a city that's often mentioned with a lot of the Chicago gangs, like the BDs, the GDs, and even the Vice Lords, one of the oldest and secretive gangs in the city is definitely going to be the Memphis mob. Now, if you attempt to search online for this group, you almost might think it's something like a myth, as they don't pop up like some of those other gangs that I mentioned that traveled from Chicago to Memphis. But I definitely need my people from Memphis to get in the comment box. Let us know if the Memphis mob is still active in the town, if it was a thing, if it died down with the arrest of the Woods brothers. Y'all definitely head downstairs and let me know what part of the city y'all tapping in from. Everybody make sure y'all hit that red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real Trill Spill shit is dropping. Y'all tapping in that comment box below. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what we got wrong, all of that. Y'all make sure y'all tapping with me directly on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until our next jug, y'all know how we rocking. It's Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.